Alright everyone, Tuesday morning and we are back talking about Celtic. The good news this week is that we've got midweek football to look forward to. It's not UEFA Champions League football, but it's still a proper competitive Celtic match, and that's great. And get used to that because we're going to have midweek football pretty much all the way through until March, the vast majority of weeks. Obviously we've got an international break coming up, but we don't need to speak about that at this stage. We just need to look forward to the game against Dundee and potentially some of the other matches we've got coming up. We're going to chat about Celtic today. Never done that before. Just to let you know, and you'll be aware from the fact I'm using the green screen again, I'm back in Melbourne. It's been a busy old month in Sydney, Brisbane. Been trying to keep the channel going during that period. International break was difficult as well. But firmly back in Melbourne now. Clocks have changed, so the videos should be going out at 7 a.m. every single day. I'm going to try and make that a strict thing. Every single day, 7 a.m, a video for you. Remember, if you're out and about as well, travelling to work, out a run, etc., and you don't have the time maybe to sit and watch the videos, all of these episodes are available as podcasts as well. Do me a favour, go on your podcast app of choice, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever else you use, search for Celtic AM because we will be on there, and subscribe or download or whatever you have to do. It would be much appreciated. We're getting really good reviews for the podcasts, and it just means you can go out and about on with your day and listen to me, and I think they work relatively well as podcasts as well. Anyway, enough from me. Let's talk about Celtic. Brendan Rodgers spoke to Celtic TV yesterday, gave an update on our currently injured stars, or star really. 4 players at the moment that he touched on in this answer. He says, we are analysing and looking at 1 or 2 of the guys that had some knocks. Callum, we are just waiting to hear back, but we think that is good news with him. Idah was in the end of a poor challenge. We just have to wait and see. He's still got his foot in a boot at the moment, but we are hoping he has got away with that. Cameron Carter-Vickers came in and got some game time, which was good for him. He needs to build up that match fitness, and obviously Greg Taylor was on the bench, didn't feature, but it makes hopefully a lot of them available for Wednesday, and we will see about 1 or 2 others. So generally quite a positive update there. If we take them one by one, Callum McGregor, he says they're just waiting to hear back, but we think that it is good news with him. I'm not sure we'll see Callum McGregor on Wednesday night. I'm kind of relaxed about that, if I'm totally honest. I think McGregor not playing probably gives Luke McCowan an opportunity. I know that he's not playing McGregor's role, and it was Bernardo playing a bit deeper, and Bernardo did struggle a bit on Sunday. But I think generally Luke McCowan being in that team against his old side on Wednesday is fine. I'm pretty relaxed about that. I think I'd like McGregor back for Saturday against Aberdeen and certainly for Leipzig. But I think for Wednesday night, what will be. With Adam Idah, an interesting one. Awful challenge from Liam Gordon late on in the game on Sunday, like a really poor, frustrated challenge. And yeah, an interesting one. Brendan Rodgers saying that he has his foot in a boot at the moment, a moon boot. So that to me would suggest there's some sort of ill effects for Idah there. And yeah, it will be interesting to hear from Brendan Rodgers later today when he gives his pre-match press conference and find out whether Adam Idah is available for tomorrow night. I sense he might be a doubt for the game. I remember Lewis Palma picked up a similar-ish tackle, let's just say, in the first game. It was on Flag Day, wasn't it, against Kilmarnock, and he had a really strong challenge going late on in that game. I don't think it was I can't remember totally, but I don't think it was like quite as bad a tackle. I don't know if the guy was even booked for it, but the Kelly player really gave him quite a sore one on his ankle. And I think Palma played on in that game. It was near the end, but he finished the match. And then soon after that, we found out that he was going to be missing. And I think he was missing for a couple of weeks after that. And I just wonder if we might have a similar situation with Adam Idah. I obviously hope that's not the case, but I wouldn't be so sure that he's got away with that awful challenge. I think it's going to be really interesting to hear from Brendan Rodgers, and certainly I would say he's a real doubt for Wednesday night. But as I say, that's not based on anything I've heard. It's just based on what happened with Lewis Palma earlier in the season. And I mean, when you see the tackle that went into Idah, he's very fortunate that he's not had a horrendous injury there, because it was an awful challenge and his leg was planted, which is always really dangerous. So he's got away with an awful injury, it seems, but hopefully he's not going to miss any time. But I guess, as I say, we'll find out from Rodgers tomorrow. In terms of the other players, Carter Vickers, Rodgers says he needs to build up match fitness, which is certainly the case. Does that suggest that he'll start on Wednesday night? I think, personally, I would have him in if he's ready to go. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers should be playing, and with these really big games coming up against Aberdeen and Leipzig after that, and can add in Kilmarnock away as well. Very tough place to go. We found that last season, and Rangers have found that out this season, so that's going to be a tough game, and you want Carter-Vickers to be in the team for these 3 games, and he certainly needs minutes, so I would have him starting. What do you then do about Liam Scales or Austin Trusty? That's a question for the manager. And Greg Taylor as well, who's on the bench, and potentially he could start on Wednesday night. So yeah, I think there's certainly decisions for Brendan Rodgers to make this Wednesday night. It's felt so far this season, especially when we'd been playing one game a week, like the team quite often picked itself and there weren't maybe too many debates to be had, but certainly for this Wednesday night it feels like there's a number of positions for Brendan Rodgers to really consider what he's going to do. Centre back, as I say, is the obvious one. You kind of want Carter Vickers in there, but who do you drop out? I know the argument was made yesterday, Liam Scales has played virtually every game, if not every game so far this season, and it may actually just make sense for him to drop out for a game. But then what do you do going forward when Aberdeen come or Leipzig comes? Because if Carter Vickers is fit, he's in the team. I reckon it's probably next to Austin Trusty, as harsh as that is on Scales, but we know that Rodgers has a lot of love for Scales, and I think that's fair enough. Scales has been, personally, I think Liam Scales has been terrific for Celtic since his real breakthrough into the team at the start of last season. So that's a debate. Left back, does Greg Taylor automatically come back in? Again, you would tend to think yes, but I think Valle is coming on game by game. Thought he was good on Sunday. And then midfield as well, Luke McCowan I would have starting, but even without Callum McGregor there, if you're starting McCowan, you're leaving one of Engels, Hatate or Bernardo out. So I think generally speaking, there's really good options. And I know we got this comment in from Hello, my name is 93, saying just shows our depth now in the Scottish League. CCV, Taylor, McGregor, Engels not starting, and we are absolutely fine. I think that's a really good point, and it's probably one that I took a little bit for granted. But you think back to this time last year, and when we were missing players, you think back to like Carter Vickers missed a chunk of the season, and McGregor and Hatate and Alistair Johnson early on in the campaign, and it really felt like we were missing these guys. Obviously in Europe, but even domestically, it felt like games were going on and we were struggling, and you were lamenting the fact that these guys weren't there to really, improve our level. It doesn't feel like that this season, as much as guys like Carter Vickers are missing time, and obviously Greg Taylor has missed like a month now, and there's been other players in and out. It does feel like the team are much better equipped to deal with these injuries, certainly at domestic level. I think it's a bit different in Europe, and even just in certain positions, like if Greg Taylor's missing now, Vai's come in, and I think there's no doubt that Vai is an improvement on Alexandro Bernabé. You've got, like last season, we had guys like Palma and Yang coming into things, and they aren't really seen anymore, certainly not from the start. In midfield, Luke McCowan, I don't know, is McCowan like this season's Odin Holm in terms of like last year, maybe at the start of the season, Holm would have been getting the minutes that McCowan is getting now. And for me, there's no doubt that Luke McCowan is a superior player to Odin Holm. And even at centre-back now, where it seems like we've got 3 pretty good options, this time last year when Carter Vickers was missing games, it was Naropski that was coming in, or Lager Bielka, and it just feels like we're stronger all over the pitch. So I think we're in a pretty good place. I feel generally like we're just waiting on that big performance in a big level, and I can't get away from next Tuesday night it is against Leipzig as potentially being the game when this team really arrives on the European stage. Because I think we've had a great start to the season, and there was a real high when we beat Rangers and a real high when we beat Bratislava, and then a real low when we got to Dortmund. And since then it's kind of been all right. I don't think the performances have been particularly great or particularly bad, and we obviously get that great result in Atalanta, back to the wall performance, and the domestic stuff, apart from the Aberdeen game, we've kept winning. But I do feel like we're just waiting on that next really big result, and I really think it could be against Leipzig next Tuesday. But yeah, it's going to be a hell of a task, that one, and we've obviously got plenty of time to build ahead to that. So yeah, just generally in a good place. Mentioned Luke McCowan a bit. I think it's fair to say he's the one people are speaking about the most, and he himself spoke to the media after Sunday's win over Motherwell. You can actually watch that on the Celtic Ways YouTube channel. I'll do my best to link it above. Well worth a watch. Nothing specific that he said that I wanted to touch on, to be honest, but I think just generally it's pretty clear that he's got an infectious personality. He's the kind of guy, and we'll all have met them, either worked with them or just met them in life, like a cheeky chappy type guy, and always has something to say, but more often than not it's something light-hearted or something funny to raise your spirits, and just the kind of person you always want to be around, the kind of person you can hold a conversation with. And I don't know for sure, but certainly when we spoke to his former boss Gary Bowyer, he said that McCowan was that kind of person, and in his press conferences he comes across as that kind of cheeky guy, and he must be great to have around the dressing room and really raise people's spirits, especially after like really bad defeats like the Dortmund game. Coming into training the next day or the day after and having someone like Luke McCowan around, I think would be really good. So he spoke a bit actually about having to pull back a little bit and maybe not be the centre of attention, just because he's come to a big club like Celtic where he doesn't have maybe the kind of playing career to fall back on like a lot of his teammates, and he maybe feels just needs to hold back a little bit. But he said, eventually he'll come out his shell, and I think he's just going to prove to be a brilliant signing. On the pitch, obviously, he looks fabulous, and off the pitch, I think he's going to be a big character as well. So yeah, pleased to see Luke McCowan doing well. I wanted to go through a few of your comments actually from Sunday, and actually all just about Lennon Miller at the moment, and there seems to be a fair bit of a agreement and feeling that Celtic should move for Lennon Miller. So we have Joseph Maxwell saying Miller is a no-brainer. Sign him and allow him to stay at Motherwell on loan. That's the three of us in agreement. Green Lichty, good team squad performance. Love to see McCowan going from strength to strength. Would like to see the club sign Lennon Miller. He is another homegrown talent like McCowan who could fit into our squad, no bother. And Johnny Boy, we should sign Miller in January and let him continue his development at Motherwell for the next 12 months. I've seen enough personally to know he can actually make the step up and thrive. Yet he's contracted at Motherwell until the summer of 2026. So not the end of this season, but the end of the following year. And yeah, I reckon he'll probably move next summer. That feels like the right time. It certainly seems from reading what his father, Lee Miller, has had to say, like that he'll think carefully about his career and he's not just going to rush into the next move. He wants to get, 100 games at Motherwell before he moves on. And just given that it's Motherwell and the position and the fact it's a young Scottish player, it's very difficult not to compare him to David Turnbull. Turnbull cost us £3 million. He had a couple of years left on his contract at that stage. I think he actually signed a year contract extension just a few months before we signed him, and you could potentially see Lennon Miller doing something similar. And yeah, £3 million for Turnbull, you would reckon that Motherwell would probably want a little bit more for Lennon Miller, something like £4 million perhaps, just given that like teams like Aberdeen, the money they got recently for Miovski and Calvin Ramsey, I think the summer prior to that when he went to Liverpool, you think Motherwell might be tempted into getting a bit more money. And I guess the big question would just be whether Celtic move for Lennon Miller. I don't think there's ever been any actual concrete links between Celtic and Lennon Miller, but there's no doubt that the recruitment team and the scouts will be well aware of him. So I agree with the comments we got in there, and especially the last one. I think I've seen enough from him in terms of his quality on the ball, and people always talk about like his positioning and the way he plays the game, that he seems like a much kind of older player than I think 18 that he is at the moment. And I think Lennon Miller moving to Celtic would be a really good move, but obviously it will come down to whether we're actually in for him or not. Potentially moves down south, potentially goes to Italy. Regardless, he's definitely going to go up through the levels, and I'm always a believer Celtic should move for the best Scottish players out there. It doesn't always work. But David Turnbull generally you would say was a decent enough player for Celtic. Probably didn't quite live up to the level that we thought he would when he signed and the way he started at the club in the COVID season. One of the kind of few bright spots this season, or that season. But yeah, I'd like to see the club move for him, and it's going to be interesting to see if we do. He's certainly the outstanding player for me in Scottish football at the moment. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. And as I say, just generally looking forward to tomorrow night's game. I'll have Brendan Rodgers back in front of the media later today, and this time tomorrow we'll be looking ahead to the game, and it's going to be a busy night tomorrow with let's just say other fixtures going on in the league, and I always enjoy the midweek stuff. So yep, that's where we're at the moment, everyone. Much appreciated you continuing to support the channel, watch the videos. It makes all of this worthwhile. And yeah, we'll return this time tomorrow to look ahead to the Dundee game fully.